Let's jump right into some seriously intense imagery, shall we? We're going deep into the book of Revelation, chapter 9.
Buckle up.
Things get pretty apocalyptic in this one. Just as a reminder, we're going to focus on unpacking those wild descriptions and symbolism here.
Right, not a theological debate today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're in the thick of Revelation. Things are already pretty chaotic, as you can imagine. And then, boom, this vivid image of a star falling from heaven. It's carrying the key to the bottomless pit. What kind of being are we dealing with here? And what does opening that pit even symbolize? I mean...
Well, right off the bat, we're hitting some heavy symbolism. That falling star could totally represent some powerful, malevolent entity.
Right.
You know, maybe even a fallen angel.
Wow.
And that bottomless pit, ooh, that's tapping into some deep-seated ancient fear of the underworld. Like a place of chaos and darkness, beyond human control. You know, it's like unleashing the ultimate unknown.
And what emerges from this pit?
Yeah.
From this smoky abyss? Locusts. But hold on. These are your garden variety locusts. The text describes them having power as the scorpions of the earth have power. It's pretty intense.
Yeah.
And then get this. They're specifically instructed to only torment those who don't have the seal of God on their foreheads. So what do you make of that? Some kind of divine hit squad, maybe?
It definitely points to a very, very specific purpose behind this whole torment thing. The seal of God marks protection. It signifies belonging. It's about, you know, separating those who are judged worthy from those who aren't.
And the torment itself is described as lasting 5 months. 5 months.
Yeah.
It's so excruciating that people would actually rather die, but they can't.
Yeah.
It paints this terrifying sense of powerlessness.
It really does. This goes beyond just physical pain. We're talking about psychological torment here, you know, tapping into that primal fear of being trapped, suffering endlessly.
Right.
The text really, really aims to evoke dread. It highlights the consequences of, well, you know, being on the wrong side of divine judgment.
And then we get to the description of these locusts' appearance.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just bizarre. They're described as like horses prepared for battle, with crowns of gold, human faces, women's hair, lions' teeth. They have it all. Even iron breastplates and tails like scorpions. What is going on with this imagery?
Well, it's a deliberate fusion of human and animal elements. It's all coupled with symbols of war and power, you know, horses, gold. It's designed to create a truly monstrous image. These locusts, they're not just pests, they're agents of chaos. They embody the destructive aspects of both humanity and the natural world.
And the noise they make.
Oh, yeah.
Their wings, it says. They sound like chariots of many horses running to battle. This is no silent plague. This is sensory overload.
Oh, absolutely. The emphasis on the sound adds this whole other layer to this judgment, this experience. It reinforces the idea of an unstoppable force, you know, a divine army descending upon the world.
And leading this army is a king named Adon in Hebrew, or Apollyon in Greek. Both names basically translate to destruction. What does that tell us about the ultimate goal of this plague?
It's pretty clear. This isn't just some random plague. We're talking about a calculated assault. It's a deliberate act of divine judgment with one clear aim: destruction.
And remember, this is just the first woe. We have the 6th angel appear, and a voice commands him to loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. For context, the Euphrates was a major river in the ancient world. People saw it as a boundary. It was a potential invasion route.
Right, the Euphrates. Huge strategic importance. You know, for the people back then, the image of something being unleashed from the Euphrates, it would have evoked immediate fear. You know, like invasion, the collapse of civilization as they knew it. It was a potent symbol of instability and threat, like big time.
And the text is super specific about the timing. These angels are prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year to carry out their mission. And their mission is to slay the 3rd part of men. What's the significance of that precise time frame?
Well, some scholars think it points to a predetermined time for judgment.
Interesting.
Others see it as like a symbolic representation of cosmic cycles.
Okay.
But either way, the precision itself, it's undeniable. It adds to the sense of like an unstoppable preordained event. This is happening no matter what.
Yeah. And then we get to the army itself. 200,000 horsemen. That's 200 million. It's an unimaginable number, but clearly it's meant to emphasize the sheer scale and the force of this apocalyptic conflict.
We're not dealing with literal numbers here, obviously. It's
Yeah.
symbolic language. It's meant to convey the sheer magnitude of divine power that's being unleashed. The number itself is almost beyond human comprehension, which, again, adds to the sense of awe and terror.
And the description of these horsemen, well, it's just as wild as the locusts. They have breastplates of fire and of jacinth and brimstone, and their horses have heads like lions and breathe fire, smoke, and brimstone. What imagery are we encountering here?
Think volcanoes, destruction.
Okay.
The classical element of fire. Fire can purify, but it can also obliterate this imagery. It evokes the raw, untamed power of nature, like a force that consumes and transforms everything in its path. Nothing can stop it.
And this army, well, they wipe out a third of humanity. It's stark reminder of the destructive potential unleashed in this chapter.
Right.
But what I find so interesting is the text says their power lies not just in brute force,
Right.
but also in their mouths and in their tails.
Yeah.
Their tails are described as being like serpents with heads. What do you make of that?
Oh, that's a fascinating detail. It adds another layer of complexity to this whole story. It suggests that words, deception represented by, that serpent imagery, play a role alongside the physical destruction. This army isn't just a brute force, it's cunning. It's manipulative, capable of deceiving and leading people astray.
And after witnessing all of this, the remaining people still refuse to repent. They cling to their idols and continue in their, sinful ways.
What does this say about the human capacity for denial, even in the face of such devastating consequences?
This is a recurring theme in Revelation. You see it over and over again. The stubbornness of humanity, the refusal to turn away from evil, even when staring down divine judgment. It's a bleak commentary on human nature and our tendency to cling to familiar patterns, even when they're clearly destructive.
Yeah, it's almost like a cycle of self-destruction, like we can't break it.
Exactly. And that brings us to a crucial question. What will it take for us to wake up? I mean, really wake up. What kind of apocalypse, metaphorical or otherwise, do we need to experience before we finally choose a different path?
That's a pretty heavy question to end on.
It is. Yeah, no kidding. It's a lot to unpack, isn't it? This idea that humanity can be so resistant to change, even when we're faced with such clear evidence of our destructive tendencies.
Oh, absolutely. It's a theme that just keeps popping up throughout history. And even now, even in our own times,
Right.
Think about the environmental crisis that we're facing.
Yeah.
I mean, scientists have been warning us for decades about the consequences of our actions.
Right.
But there's still a huge chunk of the population that just denies the problem even exists.
Yeah.
Or they resist making any real changes.
It's like we're collectively choosing to ignore the warning signs. Just clinging to this blind hope that things will just magically work themselves out.
Right.
But Revelation is suggesting that burying our heads in the sand isn't going to make the problem disappear.
Nope, not at all. Revelation is like this powerful reminder that our actions have consequences,
Right.
both individually and collectively.
Yeah.
And ignoring those consequences, well, it won't make them go away.
So how do we even begin to process these intense images, right?
Yeah.
And apply them to our lives today? I mean, we're not literally dealing with locusts and horsemen, but the symbolism is. It's obviously potent and it feels relevant.
Yeah, it is. One way to approach it is to look for the underlying messages.
Yeah.
Those themes that transcend the literal imagery.
Okay, yeah.
So, for example, those locusts with scorpion tails, they could represent the things that poison us from within.
Okay.
Like our greed, our envy, hatred,
Right.
those inner demons that cause so much suffering and division in our personal lives and on a larger scale, societal level.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the horsemen with their fiery breath? Could they symbolize the destructive consequences of those very forces?
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
wars, environmental disasters,
Right.
the breakdown of communities. And what's really interesting is how much emphasis the text puts on deception and manipulation.
Right.
You remember those horsemen? Their power isn't only in their physical strength. It's also in their words and their, serpent-like tails.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a warning to be careful about the information that we consume. Be discerning about the voices that we choose to follow.
It's like a cautionary tale against propaganda and manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Those forces that can lead us down some pretty dangerous paths without us even realizing it.
Exactly.
It highlights the importance of critical thinking,
Mm-hmm.
questioning what we see and hear, instead of just blindly accepting everything at face value.
Absolutely. And you know that part where the survivors still refuse to repent even after witnessing all that devastation?
Yeah.
It's really saying something about our capacity for denial and self-deception. We can be incredibly resistant to change even when the path we're on is leading us straight toward destruction.
It's like we'd rather cling to what's familiar, even when it's harmful, than face the unknown and make a genuine effort to transform.
It's a tough thing to face, but it's true. And, well, that brings us right back to that fundamental question. What will it take for us to wake up? What kind of apocalypse, metaphorical or otherwise, do we need to experience before we finally choose a different, more sustainable path?
It's a difficult question.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure there's an easy answer.
Yeah.
But maybe the first step is simply acknowledging that it's possible. Acknowledging that, well, we're not immune to the forces of destruction that are at play, both within ourselves and in the world around us.
Awareness is key.
Right.
Recognizing our own capacity for good and evil and understanding the potential consequences of our choices. That's the foundation for meaningful change.
So it's not about living in fear of the apocalypse, but about taking responsibility for our actions and consciously choosing a path that aligns with our values and our hopes for a better future.
I like that. It's about recognizing our agency, our ability to shape our own destiny, and understanding that our choices have ripple effects. They extend far beyond ourselves.
That's a powerful message, and it feels especially relevant today, given all the complex challenges that we're facing as a global community.
It really does. It's a message that transcends time and place. Revelation, despite its ancient origins, it still speaks to us today. It challenges us to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and our world and to make choices that lead towards healing, transformation, and a more just and sustainable future.
So I'm curious, what resonates most strongly with you from our deep dive into Revelation chapter 9? What images, ideas, or even questions have really stuck with you?
Well, there's a lot to think about, isn't there? But I think the biggest takeaway for me is that these ancient warnings, they aren't meant to paralyze us with fear. They're meant to empower us to make more conscious and responsible choices. They offer a glimpse into the potential consequences of our actions and encourage us to choose a path that leads towards a brighter future.
So it's about recognizing that we have the power to shape our own destiny, even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty of the world around us.
Exactly.
It's really fascinating how Revelation chapter 9 manages to be both kind of terrifying and thought-provoking at the same time.
Yeah.
Like it's almost holding up a mirror, right? Showing us humanity's potential for resilience, but also this stubborn, self-destructive streak.
Yeah, I think that's a really good observation. Humans, we are complex creatures, capable of great love and compassion, but we also tend to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. We cling to what's familiar, even when it's clearly harmful.
And the text, it definitely doesn't shy away from showing us the potential consequences of those choices. Things get pretty dire in Revelation, to say the least.
Oh, yeah. There's definitely a sense of urgency running through the text. It's not just a passive description of events. It's like a call to action. It's a warning. If we ignore the need for change, it can lead to some pretty catastrophic consequences.
But amidst all the doom and gloom, there's also a glimmer of hope, right? I mean, it's not all just about inevitable destruction.
Oh, absolutely. Even amidst all the judgment and the chaos, there's this thread of possibility running through Revelation.
Right.
Remember, those locusts, they were only allowed to torment those without the seal of God.
Right.
And even though many refuse to repent, the text, it never completely shuts the door on transformation and redemption.
Okay, so it's not about a predetermined fate then. There's still a chance for individuals, maybe even humanity as a whole, to change course and avoid the worst of these apocalyptic scenarios.
Yeah, that potential for change, for choosing a different path, that's a key message in Revelation. It's not just a prediction of the future, it's a challenge, a call to examine our choices, to consider the consequences. It's all about recognizing that we have agency. The future isn't set in stone.
What about the idea of judgment itself? Is it purely about punishment? Or is there something deeper going on, a deeper purpose?
That's a question that people have been debating for centuries, literally.
Yeah.
Some people interpret it as purely punitive, like a divine retribution for sin. But others, they see it as a process of purification, like a necessary step toward healing and transformation. It's like a refining fire. It burns away all the impurities to reveal a stronger, more authentic self.
So it's not necessarily about being punished for our mistakes, but about facing the consequences of our actions and,
Yeah.
and ultimately learning and growing from those experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And that learning process, even if it's painful, it can be incredibly transformative.
Yeah.
It can lead to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our connection to others, our place in this whole grand scheme of things. It can help us shed those destructive patterns and embrace a more compassionate, more meaningful way of being.
So as we wrap up this exploration of Revelation chapter 9,
Hmm.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners to ponder? What insights can we glean from these vivid and often pretty unsettling images?
Well, I think first and foremost, we got to remember that this text is meant to be symbolic. It's not literal. We're not talking about actual locusts and horsemen running around, right?
Yeah.
We're exploring the deeper themes and messages that are embedded in these really powerful metaphors.
So it's about looking beyond the surface level, engaging with the text symbolically,
Yeah,
and extracting those universal truths that resonate, across time and cultures.
exactly. And I think it's also important to recognize the power of choice. Revelation isn't about passively accepting a predetermined fate. It's about recognizing that we have the ability to make decisions that shape our own lives
Hmm.
and the world around us.
So it's not about living in fear of the apocalypse, but about taking responsibility for our actions
Yeah.
and consciously choosing a path
Yeah.
that aligns with our values, our hopes for the future.
You nailed it. It's about recognizing our agency,
Huh.
understanding that we're not simply victims of circumstance,
So,
but active participants in shaping our own destinies.
and even amidst all the darkness and the destruction depicted in Revelation, there's that underlying current of hope,
Yeah,
that belief in the possibility of transformation and redemption.
absolutely. Revelation reminds us that even in the darkest of times, even when we're faced with seemingly impossible challenges, there's always potential for change, for growth, for renewal. That spark of hope, that's what keeps us moving forward, striving to create a better world for ourselves and for generations to come.
That's a powerful message to carry with us as we navigate the complexities of our own lives and the challenges facing our world today. It's a reminder that we have the capacity to learn from our mistakes, to choose a different path, and to contribute to a more just, compassionate, and sustainable future.
Well said. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Revelation chapter 9. It's been a fascinating journey, a lot to think about.
Yeah, lots to think about. And remember, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those deeper layers. All right, let's jump right into